Trolls are one of the Western world's most famous supernatural beings, and have helped inspire many monsters in modern fantasy. And although many countries have their own variations of them, they have most often been sighted in Scandinavia through the centuries. They normally appear deep in the dark forest or in the mountains, but can be found anywhere, so you better be prepared if you actually meet one, even in your own country. That is why I'm making this video, to spread awareness of trolls and their dangers. This will mainly be based in Norwegian ones and might not apply elsewhere, so be careful out there and don't take everything I say to count for your local variants as well. But anyways, without further ado, let's go through some trolls. Fact number 1. Trolls have their territory. It is common knowledge that trolls have their own designated areas that they don't like intruders entering. These areas may vary in both size and what kind of landscape they are in. Some claim entire mountains, forests, or even mountain ranges if they work in a group. One thing about these areas are for certain, however: they are not to be entered. If the trolls there find you have entered their area, they will not hesitate in ridding themselves of the problem. That problem being you. You may be eaten, crushed either by hand or foot or boulders, or taken captive to be an attraction to the trolls as children or something. No one really knows about that part. You may wonder if the trolls ever leave these areas. The truth is that they sometimes do, but more on that later. You may also wonder where these areas are. Well, that is way too grand of a question for me to answer, but the mayor of your local county knows the answer to this question, seeing as that's the person who decides what happens in your local area. Knowing where the trolls are is an important thing to know in that case. Though your results with this may vary. I'll touch more on that later too. Fact number 2. There are many types of trolls. Most of you might think of trolls as small creatures that roam together, and while that certainly is true for some, it paints a far too narrow view of trolls as a whole to actually be accurate. In fact, there are many different kinds of trolls, in all shapes and sizes, each with their own distinct traits. Mountain trolls are by far the biggest kind of troll, and can reach up to the size of a mountain. That is partly why they're called mountain trolls. The other part is because they mainly roam in mountains, or are mountains themselves. One of their major weaknesses is sunlight, so if you go into the mountains during daytime, you will probably be alright, unless it's a very shadowy valley. This may become a problem in the winter, however, for obvious reasons. So if you must go on a mountain trip in winter, or generally in darkness, I suggest taking with you some kind of UV light to imitate the light of the sun. That is what turns them into stones and makes them become mountains in the first place. Though a simple UV light might not be enough to achieve this, it will certainly hurt the troll and might be able to scare it off. Forest trolls are also a common type of troll. As their name suggests, they roam forests, preferably if they are dark and gloomy. This is in all likelihood to prevent as much sunlight from reaching them as possible, though a lot of doubt has been raised as to the theory that they turn into stone upon contact with the sun's beams. These kinds of trolls are way smaller than the giants that are the mountain trolls, but can arguably be more dangerous, seeing as they often work more in groups and are faster and more agile than mountain trolls. Seeing as the theory of sunlight is more discussed when it comes to forest trolls, and the fact that they live deep in the darkest of forests, the best way to get away from one if they spot you is to hide or somehow outsmart it, like many famous Norwegians such as Askeladden have done. But if you hide, be very aware that they can smell the blood of a Christian man, so if that ever happens to you, you can try making yourself bleed and throw the blood in the opposite direction to confuse the trolls. Forest trolls also like to hide under bridges to snatch down anyone or anything that walks over it for food. So be sure to check underneath every bridge you cross, just in case. The kind of troll I mentioned earlier that is smaller and more innocent live underground and pose no real threat unless you are an ignorant fool. They often live in places where old farms used to be, so if you ever find an empty hut and wish to spend the night there, always be sure to knock and ask for permission first. If not, all hell might break loose. A common trait for all trolls is that they all have tails, and all kinds of trolls can have multiple heads or only one eye. These are, however, rarer traits. I suppose it would be easier to fool a one-eyed troll without depth perception than a two-eyed troll with it. Fact number 3. The Norwegian government is embroiled in a conspiracy to hide the existence of trolls. Ever since the Prime Minister's slip-up about trolls in this press conference, it has been very clear that the government has something to hide from us. I mean, just see for yourself.
Vi ønsker minst mulig inngrep i norsk natur. Jeg tror det er i hvert fall hyggelig for mennesker i Norge som synes at kraftledninger er pene. Jeg synes ikke det. I Norge er det sånn at vi er for strøm, men vi er mot strømledninger. Og det går ikke lenge. Norge er troll, sånn at det kommer til å være behov for flere strømledninger i Norge. Og sånn er det. Ja, da runder vi av der.
Look at that guy's reaction. It is clear that the Prime Minister just made a big slip-up in what he was talking about. And as an official that has to know where the trolls are in order to plan things, it is understandable for him to make such a slip-up when talking about power lines in nature, of all things. What is not understandable, however, is the silence that this statement was followed by. No later comment on it, and no further mention of trolls either by him or his government. This was of course highly suspicious for the public, but luckily, a team of Norwegian documentary makers accidentally stumbled upon a huge secret that was later leaked to the public via their documentary film. The film is called Trolljägeren, or Troll Hunter, and revealed a whole lot about Norway's troll situation, so I suggest you watch it be presented as it was in the documentary before continuing in this video. If you don't have the time for that, however, here is a short of it. Norway has trolls, and if any of them go outside of their own areas, they are hunted down by the Troll Hunter. One of the worst jobs imaginable, having to risk your life for a lower than average salary and being involved in all sorts of gross stuff. The big mountain trolls are taken care of by power lines, which are used as huge electric fences to keep them in. This helps explain the previous slip-up while talking about power lines even more. But even with this documentary coming out, slaughtering the integrity of the Norwegian government in the process, in addition to most Norwegians already knowing about trolls and where they inhabit their local area, the government still won't say a goddamn thing about it. This is why I told you that your results may vary when asking your mayor about where the trolls are. Certain countries want to keep this knowledge a secret, so depending on how kind the mayor is, you might not get an answer from him. But why? Why? Why does the Norwegian government and other governments around the world want to keep this a secret? I don't understand. There must be some kind of reason behind it, right? Right? Or is this some kind of conspiracy?
Norge er troll.
But in that case, who's behind it? Oh god, oh heck, why do they do this to us? The poor masses. It's all their fault. They shall burn in hell for what they've done. Those goddamn imbeciles. Those fuckers, those With all this help, you should be able to avoid becoming the victim of troll attack. Though if it does happen, don't blame it on me not covering the specific piece of information. Remember, #NotAllTrolls.